Welcome to History's Lullaby, where we listen, we relax, and we drift into dreamland. My name's Ellis, and it's a true pleasure to be your guide tonight. Hey guys, tonight we're traveling back to 1850s London. But fair warning, you might not make it through a single shave. Imagine stepping out of your cozy bed into a world where hygiene is a punchline. So, before you settle in, if this bedtime ritual clicks, hit that like button and subscribe. Now, lower the lights till stories glow. Whenever you're ready, let's begin. Cobblestones glisten with a grimy mix. Rain, horse dung, and God knows what. Chimney smoke turns the sky to sludge, and a vendor shouts, "Hot chestnuts," beside a rotting cabbage pile. Rats scuttle like shadows. This is Victorian London, where beauty and filth tango on every corner. A barber's pole spins, red stripes fading in soot. The sign reads, "Haircuts, shaves, tooth extraction." The last bit added in shaky ink. Inside, pipe smoke mingles with the stench of unwashed wool. Sawdust carpets the floor, likely soaking up more than hair. The barber, apron stained like a butcher's, sharpens a blade on leather. His nails are blackened, razors on the wall streaked with rust brown. A basin holds tea-coloured water, floating with hair clumps and pinkish tints. "Fresh lather," he says, dipping a brush into cracked pottery. The soap smells rancid, gritty on your skin, maybe ground up brick. Back then, barbers recycled soap scraps, mixing in cheap fillers. Your lather might have been used on a chimney sweep yesterday. He grabs a bone-handled razor, nicked and rusted. "Sheffield steel," he boasts, but it's shaved 20 men today. In 1850, a barber's razor could scrape 30 faces daily, each nick a germ highway. The blade stings your neck. A bead of blood wells up. He wipes it with a tattered belt cloth. You wonder, did the last guy bleed too? That French cologne he splashes on burns like turpentine. Paying sixpence, you step out. Your chin tingles strangely. In 1850, razor rash was just a nuisance. Nobody knew it came from shared blades spreading staph bacteria. Fun fact, not for you. By 1875, 35% of shave customers got infected. 1 in 3. Sepsis, then called blood poisoning, turned chins into, well, we'll see. The barber already lathers up a factory worker with the same tools. In a city where survival trumps cleanliness, a nick is nothing. Hygiene was a luxury most couldn't afford. As you walk away, that tiny cut on your chin is already a gateway. Bacteria are moving in, ready to throw a party. And you're about to discover why Victorian barbershops were deadlier than they looked. By mid-morning, your chin's tingle has turned into a low hum. You pass a gin shop where men in ragged coats swig from cracked mugs. In Victorian London, booze was safer than most water. A chimney sweep squeezes past, his face black as coal, tiny bits of soot falling like snowflakes onto your newly shaven skin. Back at the barbershop, the same razor now glides over a butcher's jowls. The man winces as the blade nicks a pimple, releasing a tiny burst of pus. The barber doesn't flinch, he just wipes the blade on his apron and dips it back into the murky basin. That water hasn't been changed since dawn. It's a soup of hair, soap, and God knows what else. Do you remember reading that in the 1850s London, most barbershops doubled as community hubs? Men came to shave, gossip, and even get their teeth pulled. The same chair that held your chin might have held a labourer's aching molar last week. No wonder they called barbers surgeons of the street. Except real surgeons were starting to wash their hands, while barbers, well, didn't. The butcher leaves, and the barber turns to a young clerk. "New blade today, governor?" the clerk asks hopefully. The barber scoffs. "Blades cost money. This one's good till it breaks." He lathers the clerk with the same recycled soap, the grit scraping against stubble. Each brushstroke is a gamble, spreading whatever germs clung to the bristles from the butcher's pimple. Here's a wild thought. Victorian barbers believed shaving cream made from tallow animal fat was good for the skin. They'd mix it with chalk for texture and sometimes even add arsenic for a brightening effect. Yup, arsenic, the same stuff they used to kill rats. So that gritty lather on your face might have been exfoliating and poisonous at the same time. As noon approaches, your chin feels like it's wearing a tiny wool sweater. The redness has spread, forming a ring around the neck. You pass a street vendor selling miracle cures in brown bottles. One claims to cure all shaving sores with essence of lavender. It's probably just water and food colouring, but desperate men bought it by the gallon. In another part of London, a doctor is examining a factory worker's face. The man's chin is covered in small, angry bumps, one of them oozing yellow fluid. The doctor shakes his head, muttering about barber's poison. Back then, they had no idea about bacteria. They thought diseases came from bad air or unclean thoughts. You duck into an alley to avoid a horse-drawn carriage splashing sewage. The cobbles here are worse, sticky with something that smells like rotting fish. A cat scurries by, carrying God knows what in its mouth. This is the reality of Victorian London. Even the air you breathe is a gamble. By now, the bacteria from that shared razor have probably set up camp in your skin. Staphylococcus aureus, the fancy name for staph, loves warm, moist places, like a freshly shaven chin, with a tiny cut. It's starting to multiply, sending out little signals that your immune system will soon pick up on. As you head back to your lodgings, you touch your chin gingerly. It's warm to the touch, the tingle now a throbbing ache. You might think it's just a bad shave, but in reality, you're one step closer to becoming a statistic in that 1875 medical report. The worst part? The barber is still out there, sharing that razor like a party favor. By early afternoon, your chin has turned into a miniature battlefield. The red ring around the neck has swollen like a tiny balloon, each pulse sending a throb down your neck. You pass a puddle and catch your reflection. The skin looks like someone pressed a raspberry into your jaw. Across town, the barber is now shaving a clerk whose collar is starched stiffer than a board. Had a nasty rash last week, the clerk says, wincing as the razor skims a mole. Doctor said it was from bad oysters. The barber nods, but he's thinking about the 3 customers who've come back this month with similar sores. Here's a creepy detail. Victorian barbers often reuse their shaving brushes for weeks without washing them. Imagine bristles caked in dried soap, hair, and bits of skin. A perfect nest for bacteria. Some barbers even believed that a well-seasoned brush gave a better lather. Yup. You stop at a tavern for a pint, but the ale tastes like it's been brewed in a gutter. The bartender wipes your mug with a cloth that's seen better days, probably the same cloth he uses to clean the spittoon. In the 1850s London, hygiene was a concept reserved for the rich. Everyone else just hoped for the best. Back in your lodgings, you peel off your collar to find a damp stain. The itch on your chin has turned into a full-blown tingle. Like tiny ants are doing the can-can on your skin. You try to ignore it, but every time you move your head, the swollen tissue pulls at your skin. In a nearby tenement, Her mother is dabbing vinegar on her son's shaving rash. Grandma said, "It'll draw out the bad humours," she murmurs. Back then, people thought diseases were caused by imbalances in the body: blood, phlegm, black bile, and yellow bile. They had no idea that tiny organisms were the real culprits. You decide to wash your face, but the water from the tap smells like rotten eggs. London's water system was a mess in the 1850s, with sewage often mixing with drinking water. You opt for a dry cloth instead, rubbing gently around the inflamed area. Big mistake, the friction makes the swelling worse. By 3 p.m, the bump on your chin has a white head, like a tiny volcano ready to erupt. You poke it tentatively, and a jolt of pain shoots up to your ear. That's when it hits you. This isn't just a rash. Something is growing under your skin, feeding on the tiny cut from that cursed razor. Here's a thought that'll make you shiver. In 1862, a London barber's diary recorded 12 customers dying from shaving sores in a single month. He wrote that their chins rotted like overripe fruit, turning black as coal. Back then, they had no antibiotics, no understanding of infection, just prayers and hope. As the afternoon wears on, you find yourself touching your chin every few minutes. The skin is hot, tight, and the pain is a constant thrum. You're starting to feel a little dizzy too, like the room is spinning ever so slightly. That's your body's immune system kicking into overdrive, trying to fight off an enemy it can't see. As dusk creeps over London, your chin has turned into a throbbing red mound. The white head has burst, oozing a thick yellowish pus that stains your collar. You try to wipe it with a handkerchief, but the fabric catches on the raw skin, making you wince. Across the city, the barber is lighting a gas lamp, its flicker casting strange shadows on the wall of razors. A labourer slumps into the chair, shirt collar dotted with sweat. "Had a shave 3 days ago," he grumbles. "Chin's been on fire since." The barber squints at the man's inflamed jaw, then reaches for the same old razor without a second thought. Here's a grim reality. In Victorian London, even minor infections could turn deadly. Without antibiotics, a simple staph infection could spread to the bloodstream, causing sepsis. Back then, they called it blood poisoning, and it was as terrifying as it sounds. You step outside for some air, but the street is thick with fog. Coal smoke hangs low, stinging your eyes and making it hard to breathe. A passerby coughs loudly, the sound echoing down the empty street. In 1858, this same fog would become so bad it was called the Great Stink. But even now, the air is a soup of toxins. Back in your room, you peer into a hand mirror. The area around the original nick is now a patchwork of red bumps, each one a tiny battlefield. Your lymph nodes under your jaw feel swollen and tender, like small marbles lodged in your neck. That's your immune system sending in reinforcements, but they're fighting a war they might not win. In a nearby hospital, a doctor is examining a patient with a similar rash. It's the barber's doing. The patient croaks. The doctor nods, but he's not sure. Some believe it's caused by bad diet, others by moral turpitude. Nobody suspects the real villain. Tiny bacteria multiplying in dirty razors. You try to drink some water, but the taste is foul. London's water came from the Thames, a river so polluted it was nicknamed the Great Sewage. In 1854, Dr. John Snow would prove that cholera spread through contaminated water. But for now, most people still believe it's caused by bad air. By nightfall, you have a slight fever. Your skin feels hot to the touch, and you're starting to shiver. the pain in your chin has spread to your neck, making it hard to turn your head. You lie down on the lumpy mattress, but every time you move, the swollen tissue pulls at your skin. Here's a thought to keep you awake. That barber's razor has probably shaved hundreds of men by now, each one a potential carrier of staph, each nick a chance for infection. It's a wonder more people didn't die from something as simple as a shave. As you drift in and out of sleep, you can't help but touch your chin. The skin is tight and hot, the pain a constant companion. You're starting to understand why the 1875 medical report found that 35% of shave customers got infected. In Victorian London, a simple shave could be a death sentence. The midnight fog creeps through your window, bringing with it the stench of the Thames. Your chin is now a landscape of angry red bumps, each one throbbing in time with your heartbeat. You wake with a start, realizing you've been grinding your teeth from the pain. Down the street, the barber locks up his shop, humming a tune. He counts his coins by the dim light of a gas lamp, not giving a second thought to the 12 customers who never came back last November. His diary lies hidden under the counter, its pages yellowing with age and secrets. Here's a chilling detail from that diary. 12th November, 1862. Mr. Jenkins' chin turned black as the night. The flesh fell away like rotten apples. His wife screamed when she saw the hole. Back then, they had no idea that sepsis was eating away at their bodies from the inside. You throw back the covers, desperate for air. The room spins as you stand, your fever getting worse. The swelling under your jaw has spread to your neck, making it hard to swallow. You stumble to the window, gasping for the fouled London air, anything to clear your head. In a nearby tenement, a father is holding his dying son. The boy's face is covered in sores, his breath shallow. It started with a shave, the father whispers. A neighbor shakes her head, muttering about the evil eye. Nobody understands that a simple nick can lead to a slow, painful death. You try to remember what little you know about 19th century medicine. They used leeches to draw bad blood, and surgeons wore coats stained with gore from previous operations. Hygiene was a foreign concept, even in hospitals. No wonder infections spread like wildfire. The clock strikes 2, and you're wide awake. The pain in your chin is now a constant, burning ache. You touch the skin, feeling a hard lump beneath the surface. That's an abscess, a pocket of pus that your body can't fight off. In modern times, a doctor would lance it, but here, you're on your own. Here's a thought that makes you queasy. The barber's basin, that murky soup of hair and blood, was probably teeming with staph bacteria. Every time he dipped the razor in, he was feeding the infection. It's a wonder anyone survived a shave in those days. You hear a rat scurrying in the walls, a reminder of how filthy this city is. Diseases ran rampant, preying on the poor and the uninformed. A simple shave was just one of the many ways you could die in Victorian London. As the first light of dawn creeps over the horizon, you feel exhausted. The fever has left you weak, and the pain in your chin is almost unbearable. You wonder if you'll make it through the day, or if you'll become just another name in a barber's diary. The sun rises over London, casting a sickly yellow glow through the fog. You drag yourself to the window, your chin throbbing with every step. The swelling has spread to your neck, making it hard to turn your head. You look in the mirror and gasp. The skin around the original nick is now black and crusty, like burnt toast. Down the street, The barber unlocks his shop, whistling a cheery tune. He doesn't notice the dark stain on the floor where he once wiped a customer's bloody chin. He sharpens his trusty razor on the leather strop, unaware that it's coated in a million tiny killers. Here's an excerpt from that fateful diary. 15th November, 1862. Mrs. Brown's husband came by today, asking about her. I told him she'd left a week ago, but the truth is, her chin rotted through to her throat. I buried her in the backyard, under the apple tree. The barber never reported the deaths. Who would believe a shave could kill? You try to eat some bread, but the pain in your jaw is too much. Your fever has spiked, and you're sweating through your nightshirt. The room feels like an oven, but you can't stop shivering. You know you need help, but doctors in the 1850s London are just as likely to kill you as cure you. In another part of town, a young mother is preparing a poultice of bread and vinegar for her husband's shaving sore. My mother used this on boils, she says, pressing the warm mush to his chin. Back then, home remedies were all most people had, and sometimes they worked better than a doctor's leeches. You remember reading about Joseph Lister, the surgeon who would later pioneer antiseptic surgery. But in 1850, he's just a young man, not yet aware that carbolic acid can kill bacteria. The idea that germs cause disease is still considered mad science. The clock strikes 10, and you're delirious. You imagine the barber's razor dancing across your chin, leaving a trail of fire. You reach up to touch your face, but your hand comes away sticky with pus and blood. This isn't just an infection anymore. It's a fight for your life. Here's a terrifying statistic. Before antiseptics, up to 50% of surgical patients died from infection. That means going under the knife was like playing Russian roulette. No wonder people feared doctors, almost as much as they feared disease. You hear children laughing in the street, a stark contrast to your suffering. Life goes on in London, oblivious to the silent killer hiding in barbershops. You wonder if anyone will notice if you don't make it through the day. As noon approaches, you feel yourself slipping away. The pain has numbed, and your vision is blurring. You close your eyes, thinking of clean water and sterile razors. In the distance, you can hear the barber's whistle, calling another unsuspecting customer to their doom. The afternoon drags on, your fever waxing and waning like the tide. You drift in and out of sleep, each nightmare featuring that rusty razor slicing through your skin. When you wake, the room is dim, and your chin feels like it's on fire. Down the street, the barber is examining a new customer's face. Got a bit of a rash there, he says, running a finger over the man's inflamed jaw. Must be from the new soap. The customer nods, unaware that the real culprit is the razor about to touch his skin. Here's the 1875 medical report. Bombshell. 35% of all shave customers tested positive for staphylococcus. The doctors called it razor poison, but they still didn't understand how it spread. They recommended cleaner soap and sharper blades, missing the obvious solution: disinfecting the tools. You manage to sit up, dizzy but determined. You remember a survival tip from another time. Alcohol kills germs. You fumble through your belongings, finding a flask of brandy you'd brought as a souvenir. It's not much, but maybe you can disinfect the worst of the sore. In a nearby hospital, a surgeon is preparing for an operation. He wears a coat stained with blood from yesterday's procedures, and his hands are only rinsed in cold water. The idea of washing with soap and water is still considered excessive. Why clean when you can just cut? You pour a little brandy onto a cloth, wincing as it stings the raw skin. The alcohol evaporates quickly, leaving a sticky residue. It's not perfect, but it's better than nothing. You wonder if this is how pioneers felt, using whatever they had to survive. The clock strikes 4, and your fever seems to be breaking. The swelling hasn't gone down, but the throbbing has lessened. You dare to hope that maybe, just maybe, you'll make it through this. Here's a strange fact. In the 1800s, some barbers believed that shaving with a razor dipped in urine would prevent infection. Yes, urine. They thought the ammonia would kill germs, and sometimes it actually worked. But can you imagine the smell? You hear the barber closing up shop for the day, his whistle fading into the distance. You wonder how many more men he'll infect before someone figures out the problem. It's a sad thought, knowing that so many lives were lost because of something as simple as a dirty razor. As evening falls, you feel exhausted, but alive. The worst of the fever is over, and the pain is manageable. You know you're not out of the woods yet, but for the first time since that fateful shave, you feel like you might survive. As night falls, you muster the strength to step outside. The London fog wraps around you like a damp blanket, but the cool air feels good on your feverish skin. You pass the barbershop, its windows dark, and wonder how many secrets lie behind that door. You remember the survival tip: never use a shared razor in Victorian London. But since you're already here, here's a better hack. Bring your own razor and demand the barber use it. If he protests, offer a few extra coins. Cleanliness was a luxury, but some barbers would comply for the right price. Another trick: carry a small flask of brandy and insist the barber dips the razor in it before each use. Alcohol wasn't known as a disinfectant yet, but it works better than dirty water. Plus, the barber might think you're just a fancy gentleman who likes his shave extra smooth. You could also pretend to be allergic to soap. Yes, really. Ask for a dry shave instead. It's less comfortable, but it avoids the recycled lather full of germs. Just be prepared for the barber's confused look. Not many people asked for dry shaves back then. Here's a wild idea. Grow a beard. In the 1850s, beards were becoming fashionable thanks to Queen Victoria's husband, Prince Albert. Claim you're following the latest trend, and you might avoid the razor altogether. Just make sure to keep it neat. Scruffy beards were still looked down upon. As you walk, you pass a chemist's shop. The window displays bottles of mysterious liquids, each promising to cure all manner of sores. You wonder if any of them actually work, or if they're just snake oil. In reality, most were full of alcohol and fragrances, doing little to fight infection. You reach a bridge over the Thames, its waters churning black below. The stench is overwhelming, a reminder of why you should never drink the water here. In 1854, Dr. John Snow proved cholera spread through contaminated water, but it took years for people to believe him. Back in your lodgings, you pour another splash of brandy on your chin. The pain is almost gone, and the swelling is going down. You dare to hope that you're on the mend. Maybe with a little luck and some modern survival hacks, you'll make it through this. Here's a fun fact. Well, fun now, not then. The first disposable razor blades weren't invented until 1901. Before that, people had to sharpen their own razors, or rely on barbers. Can you imagine trying to shave with a dull blade? Ouch. As you climb into bed, you touch your chin gently. It's still tender, but the worst is over. You close your eyes, thinking of clean razors and sterile environments. In the distance, you can hear the fog horns of the Thames, a lullaby of sorts for this strange, dangerous city. The next morning, sunlight filters through the fog, painting your room in a soft gold. You touch your chin. The swelling is barely noticeable, and the black crust has started to flake off. For the first time in days, you feel like you might survive this Victorian nightmare. Down the street, the barber is opening his shop, none the wiser about the silent killer in his razor. He hangs the same old blade on the wall, next to others that glint dully in the morning light. It's a stark reminder that progress takes time, and sometimes a lot of lives. Here's the good news. By the late 1800s, people started to understand the importance of hygiene. Joseph Lister's antiseptic methods began to catch on, and barbers finally started disinfecting their tools. Can you imagine the relief when they realized boiling water could kill those tiny monsters? You decide to take a walk, eager to see London in a new light. The streets are still filthy, but you notice something different. A few shops have signs advertising sterilized razors, and a chemist is selling small bottles of carbolic acid. Change is coming, even if it's slow. As you pass a modern barbershop, well, modern for 1875, you peek inside. A barber is boiling his razors in a pot of water, steam rising like a tiny victory flag. Customers sit in clean chairs, waiting their turn with confidence. It's a far cry from the dingy shop you visited just days ago. You remember reading about the first safety razor, invented in 1901 by King Camp Gillette. It allowed people to shave at home with disposable blades, avoiding the horrors of shared razors. Imagine the freedom of not having to trust a barber with your life. Walking along the Thames, you notice workers building a new sewer system. It's part of the Great London Sewer Project, designed to keep sewage out of the river. It took the Great Stink of 1858 to make this happen, but finally the city is starting to clean itself up. Here's a mind-blowing fact. Before antiseptics, hospitals were more dangerous than battlefields. Soldiers were more likely to survive a gunshot wound than an operation. It's hard to believe, but true. Cleanliness really is next to godliness, especially when it comes to staying alive. As you head back to your lodgings, you feel a sense of relief. The danger is passing, and a new era of hygiene is on the horizon. You might have survived the razor's edge, but millions weren't so lucky. Their stories are a reminder of how far we've come and how much we take for granted. That night, you sleep soundly, dreaming of sterile hospitals and clean barbershops. The memory of that infected chin fades, replaced by the knowledge that even in the darkest of times, progress is possible. All it takes is a little knowledge and a lot of courage. As your final day in Victorian London dawns, you peer in the mirror and smile. Your chin is almost back to normal, just a faint scar reminding you of the razor's peril. The fog has lifted, and sunlight streams through the window, painting the cobbles outside in warm hues. Down the street, the barber is still at work, but something's different. A young apprentice is boiling water in a copper pot, carefully dropping each razor into the steam. New-fangled idea, the barber grumbles, but you notice he's using a fresh block of soap today. Progress, however slow, is tangible. Here's the wrap-up. By 1900, barbershops had transformed. Disinfectant solutions became standard, single-use towels replaced shared cloths, And the concept of sterilization wasn't just for surgeons. That 35% infection rate, it plummeted thanks to simple steps like washing hands and boiling tools. You take a last walk along the Thames, now less stinky thanks to the new sewers. Children play on the banks, and a street vendor sells lemonade instead of suspect gin. It's a far cry from the filthy city you arrived in, where a shave could mean a death sentence. Remember that barber's diary from 1862? Those 12 deaths weren't in vain. Each one was a puzzle piece in the grand story of medical progress. It took decades, but eventually people connected the dots between dirty tools and deadly infections. As you prepare to leave this era, here's a final survival hack. If you ever find yourself in a Victorian barbershop, ask for a shave with a brand new blade. Yes, they cost more, but your life is worth it. And if the barber scoffs, mention Joseph Lister. His name might just scare them into cleanliness. You pass a pharmacy displaying a poster, carbolic acid, kills germs dead. It's a primitive advertisement, but it marks a turning point. People were finally understanding that invisible enemies lurked in dirt and they had tools to fight back. Here's a comforting thought. Every time you pick up a modern razor, you're holding a century of progress. Disposable blades, antibacterial gels, even the humble sink, they're all descendants of the hard-learned lessons from Victorian London. As evening falls, you sit by the window, listening to the distant clip-clop of horses. Your chin is healed, your mind at ease. You survived the razor's edge, and in doing so, you gained a new appreciation for the simple act of staying clean. So now, as you drift off to sleep, think of how far we've come. No more shared razors, no more septic sores, just safe, sterile shaves, sweet dreams, and rest easy, knowing your chin is safe from 19th century horrors. Now, as the story fades, let your mind drift like that Victorian fog. Slow, gentle, weightless. Feel the coolness of a modern razor against your skin, imaginary though it may be, and sigh with the knowledge that those razor bumps are just a story now. The rhythm of the narrative becomes your heartbeat, steady and calm, each word a lullaby rocking you closer to sleep. Picture the Thames at dawn, its waters clean and quiet, far from the stench of 1850. Imagine the barber shop transformed, sterile and bright, with razors gleaming like new coins. These images blur into dreams, where history's lessons rest softly, no longer a danger, but a distant echo. Your breath slows, matching the pace of this gentle ending. The room is dark, but your mind is light, free from the fear of Victorian sepsis. All that remains is the warmth of the story, a reminder of how far we've come, and the peace that comes with knowing you're safe, here in the present, lulled to sleep by history's gentle voice. Good night, and rest easy.